Today we are going to be painting everything but the flesh on this Great Unclean One in just 90 minutes. Let's see how it goes. Welcome to another Artis Opus video. We are painting this bad boy. Look at him. He's so huge. Look at that sword. That came out really well. That will not photo appropriately, but it looks even better in real life. Really pleased with this. So hopefully, if you're watching this video, you've watched the how to paint the flesh in 90 minutes section. The idea was to do the entirety of this model in just 3 hours, which was quite a big ask. I wanted to do, if you were just doing a basic standard, that'd be fine. 3 hours is a doddle. To do it at a high standard, like a high, award-winning army, not golden demon level, is actually quite tricky. So hopefully you've watched the flesh video. We will link that below. Just about managed that. 1 hour 27, I think, so 3 minutes under timer. You'll have to watch this one to see if I make it. Turned out really, really well. We focused on the weapons. So it's a very simple model. We've done all the flesh to a high standard. That's the most important part of it, but then you just need a couple of little other details to pop, and that's what makes it work. So please like the video if you like it. Please comment below if you have any more suggestions for speed challenges. I found this a bit stressful, but kind of enjoyed it, and I think it's good for useful content because people don't get as many hours as they'd like in this hobby, so getting the most out of those hours is a really important thing. So I think this is properly educational, and it is also kind of fun, even if it is a little bit higher stress than you normally like. So pop your comments below, suggestions, criticisms, anything like that. Do you like the model? Do you not? Should I have done in blue? Do let us know, and I hope you enjoy the video. Let's jump in. Okay, so just to give you an idea of the colours that I'm going to be using for the base coats, we've got a couple of gorgeous kind of fleshy, disgusting inside innards colours here from AK. I'm really excited to use those. The bronze bits can be done with Retribute armour because it is amazing and covers super fast. More gas bone for the bony bits, and then somewhere between these colours is going to be where we end up for the metallics. So I'm quite happy to mix this with either flat black or a bit of our blue that we've used elsewhere on the model to get them to kind of just dull it down a bit. This covers amazingly, and then this gets me the colour I want. Okay, so let's go. I just wanted to show you how incredibly this mix coats. So the way that I make this mix is take a little bit of black, a little bit of silver, get a bolt gunny colour, a little bit of blue for some extra interest, and there. It's just incredible what this mix does. Now obviously I don't want his loincloth to be silver, but because I'm painting it after this, it doesn't really matter that I'm hitting it with it. There you go, that is a type of amazing one coat coverage you get when you think carefully about what metallics you use and why. And the entirety of this sword was base coated in, I don't know, a minute or something like that. So you can make your life a lot easier if you're willing to kind of think outside the box. And if you want a dark metallic that covers beautifully and fast, and you've got a light one that works really well, then just put some black in it. I mean, black's amazing for coverage, and why wouldn't you want to kind of make your life easier? Also, that little blue hint that we've got in those metallics is awesome. You will make your metallics slightly less shiny doing this, but this is the base coat, so I don't view that as a problem at all anyway. Okay, so where are we at? I have just base coated all the tentacles. I've been jumping around between these two, and for the kind of these deeper sections, I've mixed in a bit of Cirrus Purple, which of course we've got in our base coat, so that's kind of helped promote coherency of the model. The horns, actually more gas bones really not covered very well, so I've added in a little bit of bone white from Vallejo Game Color. They've taken a few coats though, been a little bit problematic. Hopefully they get a bit better when we move on to the kind of the dry brushing detailing of them. The silver just coated in a second, which is amazing. That mix has been really effective. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be painting all of the silver bit kind of roughly, and that's why I've left this loincloth I'll detail afterwards kind of retrospectively. So that's it for all the sections. The only other thing of note is when I painted this, I used a little bit more purple in it, and then I've just quickly wiped over it before it's dry, and we've got to, if we show that, benefit from our highlighting because that tummy section's been hit so much anyway. So We'll be drawing special attention to this later on in the painting, and kind of that was a reason to take that approach to it. So now we're going to move on to detailing these metallics. Let's see how we can do this. So I've got my same super stubby, very worn down. This is a large that we used in the skin video and for the base coating of it anyway. And then I'm just going to hit it from above, and these skulls kind of at an angle so the light is coming in from here. Let's bring that a little bit closer here. Now it doesn't matter if I hit the gold sections as well, because they're going to get washed, and all of the sword is going to kind of benefit from this dry brushing. We are going to be knocking this back, don't worry, he's not going to have some kind of like shiny paladin's weapon. So one thing we've got to be mindful of when we're trying to do things fast is just his drying times basically. So I'm going to mix up a quick wash, a bit more of our Huldra blue, and I'm going to mix in some of the Vallejo black. Some water, and we're just going to hit all of the sword with that. So we don't want it to be too heavy, but we do want to make sure that our recesses are really like these bubbles. I'll make sure those recesses are far darker, so all over this weapon. And the reason we're doing this now is because we're going to move on to other sections while this is drying, and because we are literally on the clock with this one, it makes sense to anything that has drying time involved. You need to kind of start sooner in the process. That allows us to jump into using the Scrag Brown for these areas. So I'm just going to use neat Scrag Brown. This has great coverage, and we're going to get all over the loincloth, and then we will be highlighting the loincloth with dry brushing because it's got this kind of awesome crosshatch texture on it. So the messiest tasks have been done first, and then the neater tasks are done later, and it just means that we can proceed with our first steps without any caution, which is obviously far quicker, and then the things that we were going to have to kind of be specific with and paint inside the lines nicely with anyway, it's just kind of making the most of the fact that these are going to get specifically picked out. The horns, we're going to bring up with a little bit of dry brushing, and then we're going to do some stages to kind of knock them back, so to speak. So take Vallejo's Bone White for this. Just using a small here, real step down in terms of the size of brush that we've got. It's going to be quite a heavy dry brush, though. We're looking to really every single raised lip on these, we're going across the details. We're not going up and down these horns, we're going across them. And then particularly given that when you are kind of trying to base coat over something that has been black, it's the raised areas that are hard to get coverage on with your brighter colors. This dry brushing is going to antidote that, essentially. So nice and bright, we'll get the horns all over, and then I'll actually take a little bit of white, add that into the mix and kind of make them brighter towards the edges. We'll take this approach with the toes as well, a little bit more carefully. They are going to be washed, so I'll be able to neaten them up afterwards. So I've just got a little bit of white here. Doesn't matter which brand you use for this, you're just liking to make your bone white a bit brighter. And then starting from the ends, where we like it the brightest, working our way down these horns. Don't forget his toes. Let's get all those areas too. And as I said, obviously take care here. You can step down to a extra small if you wish. Take care here, but we are going to be fixing any kind of see that I've base coated here and it's run into the recesses of the nails. We're going to be fixing that with some washes later. That's a really an important thing to know when you're trying to do something super fast. It's important to know that you've got something in the bag to be able to accurately fix your mistake. All right, so it's time for a little bit of ice yellow to get involved. Now mixed with these reds from AK, this should give us a kind of really interesting, fairly disgusting, fleshy color. Take a little bit of this. Look at that, it's going to be perfect. So proceed with caution in these sections. we will be doing some more highlights here, so if anything looks too heavy-handed, bear in mind that we've got a further step of contrast on its way. And of course, as I mentioned with the previous one, if you do want to step down to the extra small for kind of highlighting any of these sections you're doing here, or just for having a smaller implement, then that's absolutely fine. Alright, so coming up to the hour mark, and it's time to kind of step up these metallics a little. So going back to our silver, and then over the wash, I'm going to re-establish these nice highlights we had before we knock all of this back with some kind of rusting and much more Nurgle effects. As I said, I don't feel he should be shiny. I'm going to pay special attention to the midsection of the blade here. I want that to kind of be the bit where I imagine the light to be reflecting off. Gorgeous texture on this piece. Doing directional dry brushing here, so nothing is coming from below, everything is coming from above and kind of from the tip downwards. We can say the same for the dagger. So before we get on to kind of our all over weathering, we need to put down a little bit of a quick soft wash on our loincloth. So I've got a bit of Xeris purple here. You can mix this with, you could use a purple wash at this stage if you like, but I'm just using this to kind of go quickly all over and drag back all of this section. We're going to be covering most of this over, but at the moment that scrag brown stands out kind of, and not in a way when it's meant to stand out, like this should all be more tied in with him than it is currently. So this purple wash is going to help out with that. And then that'll allow us to highlight it up. Also with the highlighting, we're going to be going kind of again into bony colours that are all over the rest of the model. Pop those bubbles, but this should allow things to kind of not, you don't want his clothing to be a focus point on the model. That's not what this guy is about. He's about skin and weapons and horns. Equally here, in terms of those horns, I think a nice warm browny purple wash, or glaze rather, I guess would be technically more accurate here. And this is going to go all over the horns. So you don't want this to be too thick, take your time with it. Because it's not a traditional wash, it will dry quite fast, so make sure that you don't overload an area and then have to go and fix it, because you will get tidal marks. Given that it's not a normal traditional proper wash, what I'm going to do is my strokes will be going away from the tips of the horn and working fast. When we do get to that section, clean off my brush, going it and wet it, and then we can use that to fade into the tips. Doing that on both of them, and his toes will get the same treatment as well. Okay, so the all-important weathering. We're going to be using a kind of tried and tested favourite sequence of mine for the rusting, which is Doomball Brown first. I'm running out of places to hold this model because so much of it is currently drying. So very carefully we're going to take this all over, and this is what's going to add age to our Nurgle weapons. So you don't want it too thick or too thin. Put a fair bit of time into trying to get it right, and it's absolutely fine to do it twice if you need to. So I'm going to get all of the weapon with this, like every single bit, concentrating on those pit marks and stuff like that. That's where we really want it to be collecting. You don't have to get all of it. I'm choosing to here, but it's down to you how you like your weapon to look. And of course, if you feel that you've hit the raised areas too much with any of this stuff, then pop those bubbles. Then of course you can just go in and dry brush it after. It's an organic process, backwards and forwards. It doesn't really matter kind of how many stages it takes. It's not like you have to go from dark to light or light to dark or anything specific like that. So we've whacked the hairdryer out with our ridiculous time restraints that we've got going on here. And as I said, you may need a second version of this doing wash, so I'm just going to be doing that. The second wash, you can concentrate more in specific areas if you wish. You'll notice that because I've used a wet wash, I've got stuff kind of concentrating on the lower sections of it. That's fine. I think that's going to kind of add to the overall feel of the piece anyway. So this one I'm going to be a bit more specific with, kind of in the pitting, that type of stuff. Don't worry if it's not looking too precise. I mean, we are painting a Nurgle thing anyway, so kind of perfection isn't the aim of the game here. I'm really quickly gonna go over these. We don't have the time to be perfect when we're trying to do something this quick, but luckily, and for good reason, we've picked a model where kind of everything being like absolutely spot on and incredibly crisp is not the aim of the game. There we go, so that's second stage done. I'm going to whack out the hairdryer again, and then we're going to move on to the next stages of the orange. We've got about 20 minutes left, moving fast. We've got some scrag brown here, and what I'm going to look to do is kind of concentrate this in those lower sections and pitted areas that we've outlined in the previous step. So it doesn't matter if your previous stage isn't fully dry, luckily, because we don't have time to worry about that. So blobbing it in all the pitted areas, swiftly moving around the model. Okay, clock is ticking, so I'm grabbing some Troll Slayer orange, mixing it in with our scrag brown. You can see why this works well for rust. It's just such a naturally rusty transition of colours. And as with each of our previous steps, concentrating in certain areas and then quickly going over and dabbing these. This may seem like quite a timely process for me to be doing on a speed painted model, but just because you're doing something fast, that doesn't mean that it doesn't need a focal point. And actually, I'm a strong believer that you can get away with murder far more easily on a fast painted thing if you've given people somewhere for their eyes to be focusing on. So that's a large part of why I'm going to town on the rust, is that if people see this model and they think, oh, that rust is lovely and that skin is pretty solid too, then hopefully it shouldn't matter that it's obviously been done very, very quickly. While that rust is drying, I'm going to grab some Gauze Blaster Green. Take a little bit of Huldra Blue. And I'm going to be taking exactly the same approach to the gold areas that we have done with the silver areas. So Huldra Blue is super potent. Just a little bit in the mix will be enough. And hopefully we should be able to suggest some kind of really pretty full-on corrosion on these areas. I'm going to restrict it a little bit more than I have done with the orange steps. But it's nice to be able to get some kind of different contrast in. I'm not going to particularly pay attention to whether it's gold or not. I think it's fine for all these things to be weathered in kind of different ways. He's a Nurgle guy. I don't think he's been caring for his weapons particularly adept. So once you've used the mix, you can use the same Gauze Blaster Green and add in a little bit of Ice Yellow. And then dot that in the recess sections. Don't be afraid to get a finger in there to remove it from raised areas. Or to fix mistakes from the previous step. Okay, hairdryer again, final orange, and then finishing steps. While we are waiting for drying, jumping around all over the place here, don't have an option, we are going to hit up all of the tentacles on the model, and I've just got a little bit of Ice Yellow mixed in with our AK Reds. It doesn't matter which of the AK Reds you use, and there's probably actually an argument for kind of mixing them up over the model just for a little bit of variation. Either way though, it's important to make sure that
every single part of this model has at least one highlight on. We're going for a speed job, but we do want it to be a good looking speed job. So we have some Fire Dragon Bright here. We also have some Vallejo Fluorescent Orange. Just going to make everything else on the palette look very, very dull. And some Troll Slayer. Just going to knock it back. So this is our kind of no holds barred final step to the rusting. We're not completely dry with previous steps, but as I've been saying on repeat, it doesn't matter. It does matter that this really pops though. This is the super, super bright one. So you want something that you can put down really thin and quite wet and still very obviously stands out. Last 10 minutes. So I've actually put a little drop of fluorescent yellow from Vallejo into the mix because, oh, I'm wobbling, because as I said, I really want this stuff to stand out. Going mega fast here. You could do like rust streaks and stuff like that and it would look amazing, but obviously that's quite a precise thing to do, and it's probably not escaped your notice that precision is not something I have had time for the kind of detailing steps of this tutorial. Those weapons really are popping out though. They look absolutely incredible and this has been completely worth it. I'm going to take a little bit of our wine red here, pop it on our palette. I'm actually going to mix that with some gloss varnish here from Vallejo. And some water. So we've got the gloss varnish, tiny bit of the paint, quite a lot more of the gloss varnish. And this is going to be painted all over our disgusting section. So we're doing something interesting here. It's kind of a wash. Because of the consistency of the gloss, it's quite gloopy. It's going to behave very much like any normal wash that you're used to. But all these sections are going to end up shiny and disgusting, which obviously, given that we have a Nurgle dude here, is exactly what we're going for. So speeding our way through. All right, I think we have just about failed there, but only quite. So there is one more step that I'd like to do, which is to grab a medium and a little bit of our silver. Oh look, that. Go end up seconds over. It'll be worth it. So grabbing our silver here and our medium, and then I can remove quite a lot on my hand. And proceeding with care through the various stages of washing I'm doing this really carefully with directional dry brushing. The various stages of washing we've dulled the shiny edges of our sword a little, and even if he's Nurgle, he's been hitting things a lot and the edges of that blade should be sharp. And it's always easy to forget the bits that are hard to get to, and they're annoying to get to, so make sure that you give them some time to. And this is especially important for this one because if you're looking at the model from the front, this is what is kind of framing behind his head. So for contrast, but also just for kind of front-on visibility, it's very easy to know that it's easy for you to see this when you're looking at it. But when you're looking at the model, it's this stuff that's behind, so it's important. That is added loads. Those weapons look amazing. Those do not look speed painted, probably because they took us half the time of the paint job, but there we go. All right, so 1 minute. 2 minutes and 22 seconds over, but that has come out pretty fantastically. He looks disgusting, super pleased with the end result, and yeah, there's loads of areas that you could improve this model, but it's up to you which ones you want to add there. I think 3 hours for a model of that quality is an absolute bargain. Bit stressful, but fun all the same. Okay, so I've had a little think about it, and after ending the last video saying it's always worth spending a little bit more time to kind of finish off any areas that make them look particularly good in reference to the sword, I'm going to allow myself 10 more minutes to see if I can get this guy far closer to perfect than he is now, because I think it's a good investment. So obviously it's taken 3 hours and 3 minutes in total. Get the piece done. Let's see what happens if we spend 3 hours and 13 minutes. So the areas I'm going to hit are going to be, I'm going to mix up a orangey yellow final kind of orange, super orange pushing glaze. I might put in a little bit of white in there as well to make it a bit more pastel. I really like how the turquoise verdigris wash worked with the gauze plastic green. I think that was really successful. So I might kind of allow that to bleed down a little bit more into certain areas. It looks very cool on the silver, it looks kind of Celtic in a way. The rust at the back here, or lack of, is an issue. So I'm going to get some rust on this loincloth because it's present everywhere else that's metallic on the model, so why is it not there? And then these skulls I'm also going to do in metallic, so we should have a kind of a really a more balanced area of the model's got these beautiful bright colours everywhere, why wouldn't he have them there? And that's about it really. Maybe a final dry brush of white on the horns too, to really make them pop out of their recesses. I will probably put down a quick wash towards his skull to fade them in a little bit more as well, because they'll look brighter at the ends if I make them darker at the recesses. So I'm going to put on time lapse and a 10-minute countdown, and we'll see exactly what we can do here in 10 minutes just to polish this as much as possible. Go. So we've done our extra minutes. I think he looks great. They have made a bit of a difference, a little bit brighter, a bit more contrast on these. The horns get darker towards the close areas of his body, and that blade really is a proper focal point of the model now from this angle. Super pleased. So there we go. Didn't quite manage it in our time we set out, but yeah, I am mega pleased with that. That would look brilliant on any table. Put this on a nice base, and he's a keeper.
All right, so he is great. We didn't quite make it in the time we had allowed ourselves. That was mostly because I really thought it was worth making a couple of extra things pop, and I did spend a little bit longer on the sword than I would have, but he looks incredible. On a base, that model is just awesome. I mean, we picked a model that is helpful, and that's a big part of the discussion with this type of thing. Like, if you don't have many hours for hobby, don't pick Tzeentch with loads of armor trim and stuff like that if you want to get an army done on the table fast, or even just an individual figure. If you want to do it to a high level or a normal level or a fast level, whatever it is, it's all about meeting your expectations. And that's something really big that I hope to push with this channel and these videos, is letting people set realistic expectations and then hopefully just smashing them. Like, oh, at a minimum, I want to have this guy looking pretty good in 3 hours. Oh, he looks amazing in 3 hours, great. So it's all about setting those goals at a decent level and then approaching things in kind of a systematic way, still having fun whilst doing it. And we've done all of that, no airbrush, no anything. That is like a manual process. And we've used texture-based painting, and there is nothing precise there apart from dotting the i's on that entire model. Nothing there is like getting in, doing details, and he's turned out amazingly. So once again, we'll pop him on screen because look at that. That is effective as can be, given the time that we put into it. So I hope you liked the video. Please do give it a like if you've liked it. Please subscribe, hit that bell notification for future content, and most importantly, perhaps share it around if you've got other people that you think would enjoy it, and let us know below what you would like to see in the future, because there are so many models out there. There's fast, slow, high level, low level, metallic, non-metallic, all that type of stuff. Let us know what you'd like to see coming up soon, and if something gets overwhelmingly requested, then that jumps right up the list. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you soon.